Hello friends, it's Marianna and welcome back to my YouTube channel. You may be coming from my last video, which is this one right here, talking about everything that I spent in May of 2024, where I also mentioned that I have had a really big change recently to my budgeting habit, which has been switching from Notion to Google Sheets when I do my budget, and also kind of downsizing my categories. But in today's video, the main focus will be all about why I switched from Notion to Google Sheets and kind of like the pros and cons between both, and also showing you guys my new budget template for Google Sheets for my monthly budget. I use Notion to manage my money and track all of my expenses from September of 2022 all the way until February, like March of this year. And then I decided that it just wasn't working for me anymore, and I will obviously be sharing why a little bit later. I will not be sharing my template yet because it's not perfect. I'm still kind of learning my way around it, but it's definitely been better the past 2 months, like that I've done the budgeting with this, than Notion has. Starting with the Notion pros and cons. The pros, the first one I think is quite silly but also kind of important to me because budgeting is something that I love to do, and so I wanted to make it as fun and as pretty as possible, so you might guess where I'm going with this. But one of my biggest Notion pros is that it's just so aesthetically pleasing. It is pretty to look at, it is cute to kind of organize, and so it adds an extra bit of excitement into the budgeting day. But that's like a very personal, subjective like pro of why Notion is better. My next pro for Notion as a money management tool is that it's an all-in-one place kind of app. I also have many other aspects of my life managed in Notion as well, so I really like that I could just go to one app and kind of have everything there, whereas now I don't have that anymore. And then my third pro for Notion is that it's really easy to filter. Like I mentioned, I'm still kind of learning my way around Google Sheet, but I still think from what I know at the moment that Notion still makes it a lot easier to filter. But correct me if I'm wrong, please. And if you have like links to different tutorial videos where I can learn this stuff, please let me know because I really do want to learn. Now moving on to my Notion cons. I find it quite difficult in Notion to link different databases, and again, this could be my limited knowledge of Notion because I am nowhere near being a pro at either of these apps. I just know, I think, like a pretty general amount. So in terms of linking databases with Notion and having things be a bit more automatic, I'm not great at that. I don't know if you can like have my different monthly pages and then a page that links all those together to see the totals for everything, whereas I know in Google Sheet you can do that really easily. So I find it quite difficult to link databases and to link different sums and pages and categories between different Notion pages. So that's a con for me. Another con is that I've found that I was doing lots of manual calculations because of like the way I had organized my Notion page. Again, I think this is quite limited to my knowledge of Notion and how to make it work more efficiently, but in my personal experience I found it lots of manual calculations here and there, whereas I wanted things to be a bit more speedy and automatic with the computer doing that math for me. And then my third one is that I can't find a way to visually represent the data in Notion, so I can't create a graph of everything I spent in the last 12 months, you know. Haven't seen a way to visually represent that in different charts and graphs. I don't think that there's a way to do it. Once again, if there is, let me know, but I find it quite limited into what you can do between like comparing, that's what that was, between comparing data and visually representing it. Those are like my main kind of cons for Notion in terms of managing money. Moving on to my Google Sheets pros and cons for money management. The first one is directly linked to my Notion con, which I kind of mentioned already, but it's so easy to link different databases across different pages as well within Google Sheet. So I really like that I can select like, and I'm gonna go into this like when I show you guys my template, but I really love that on the bottom I can have like my different months and they're all their own pages, and then I can have one final page which is like a review of everything, and I can like interlink different pages and different cells from different pages and then have that visually represented on another page. So I find it really easy to link databases and to connect all of the data. And going with that, I also find it a really big pro about Google Sheets is being able to very easily visually represent your data with graphs and charts as well. So that is a huge pro for me because I'm very much like a visual person, which is why the whole aesthetically pleasing thing plays a huge role in Notion, because the visual aspect comes into that. But the visual representation of data sways me more to Google Sheet than Notion with the aesthetically pleasing look of it. And then my last pro for Google Sheet is that it's so much easier to just automatically calculate everything. As I input numbers into one part of it, the other part has already been calculated for me, whereas in Notion, like I mentioned, I found it's very manual and like tedious to go back and forth doing different calculations. And it also just helps to have less error as well within my monthly budget, which is obviously amazing. I don't want to have errors in my math. Being able to really quickly and easily automatically calculate stuff stuff with the formulas is a huge win. Then moving on to my cons for Google Sheets, I do have a few. One, I think it's really ugly. It's just like you can kind of make it aesthetically pleasing, but the whole look of it with all the graphs everywhere, I don't love how it looks. It's very corporate finance giving, and that's like a whole vibe that I really don't like. So in terms of the look, I think it's really ugly and it's not as appealing for me to go in and do it, but I still love to budget, so I still get excited for it. I just wish it looked a little bit prettier. Another con is that it's another app that I have to add to my everyday money management and just life admin in general. So with Notion, like I mentioned, lots of my life admin is in one place, whereas now I have the additional Google Sheets to go to, which is just a little extra barrier, but it's not a huge deal. It's nice to have as much as possible in one place. My next con is that I find it a lot more difficult to filter things the same way that I could in Notion. That might just be my own like knowledge limitation. So if you know how to easily filter things similar to Notion in Google Sheets, let me know in the comments below, link a video or something, because I would love to know how to do that because it's one of my favorite features from Notion. And my last one for Google Sheets is that there's just a bigger learning curve for me right now because I do not like Excel, numbers, sheets, stuff like that. It's not something that I usually use, and so for me Notion was quite user friendly and I got the hang of it really quickly, whereas with Google Sheets most of it I understand fairly well, but like the formulas and connecting certain things is a little bit tricky for me. But luckily my boyfriend and best friend both work in corporate finance and are very well versed with Excel and Google Sheets, so I can always ask them for help as well. But that's like a con that isn't really a con, like the learning curve, because once you know it, it's irrelevant. But those are all of my pros and cons for Notion and Google Sheets. And now let's move on to the exciting part, which is to see what I've come up with in terms of my new Google Sheets budget for every month. So here is my Google Sheets template. As I mentioned, I think it's quite ugly, but I have tried my best to make it as cute as possible. So what you're gonna see here is on the top left I have my fixed costs, and underneath that I have my subscriptions. So these are things that shouldn't change month to month. And then I also added on over here, column C, these little check boxes where I can go in and check things off, because what I find is that they don't all come out on the same day every single month. So I like to go in and check it off whenever I have either paid them or they have come out. It's just good to keep in track of it, so I like to have this little thing here. Next to that I have my variable cost. This is the budgeting amount, so it's not my actual spent, that's over here on this side, but here is where I can go in and change it. And so you can see at the moment this says 400 and this has 1,445. So if I come in and change this from 150 to 100, this is going to update where it's going to say 350 here, and then this has changed as well to 1,300 and something. I'm going to put this back, but usually this is how much I like to budget for in these categories. And I used to have more different categories, but I kind of merge them into these three main ones because it's a lot easier this way for me and it makes more sense. And then my savings, I'm not going to show you guys what I'm saving and how much I usually save, but basically what I'll do is that I'll put here a certain amount that like I'm getting paid that month. Let's say it was 2,000. This out value is going to calculate everything that is budgeted for. It says here my fixed costs is including my subscriptions and then my variable costs. So basically this in is how much I'm getting paid, and then this out is how much I'm predicting I will spend that month. So whatever is left here is how much I can then allocate to my savings. And I have a couple different savings things. Like I have one big emergency fund saver, but I also have little pots on Monzo where I'm saving for specific things. Whenever I have this value, depending on what I budget for this month, is where I can go in and do my savings. And then once I put them in the allocated pots, I can go in and check it here. And then this total spent here is really cool because it's gonna show me the total amount spent that month, which is really helpful when I make my what I spent in a month videos, because throughout the month in this actuals I will put here what I spent. So let's say I spent £10 at Lidl, and then the category would then be groceries. I'm very proud of this little drop down menu I did. The cool thing is you can see here my actuals total automatically is gonna calculate to the total amount I spent that month. These little like color squares here, they're color coded to the category, and also you can see here it's going to show me the total for each category already calculated for me. And then you can see here left has changed now to 190 where before it was 200. So this cell is really cool because it's going to take my total budget for that category minus how much I have currently spent and then show me how much I have left, which all this used to be a big mental math like manual calculation that I used to do each month to kind of see how much I had left. So week by week when I update my budget sheet, I can then see how much I have left to spend, and then compare it to how many like days or weeks I have left until payday. I can kind of have an idea of where my budget is sitting at that week. So I find this really helpful because it's just so automatic, and as I fill things in, let's just say This is like shopping, all updates, which I freaking love so much because it's so much easier. Let's clear all of this. And then if I have something which, for example, the purple one is gifts. So if I wanted to gift someone something, I would have this category which would total up here and also show up here. And if I spend something, like for my sister's birthday weekend, I spent stuff that wasn't within the predicted categories because I had saved for it separately, I can just put here the amount and then leave this blank, and so it won't add up to any of this stuff, but it will still be in the totals because the totals is everything of my actuals. And you can see that as I make these changes, this number here on the total spending is changing to calculate everything from my fixed, my subscriptions, and my actuals total, which at the end of the month is a really easy and nice quick way to see everything that I have spent and all the categories. Yeah, that is my new Google Sheets monthly budget template. Down here I have the different months, and then year summary, I'm working on it. It has nothing yet, but it's basically going to be a place where I can break down and visually represent everything that I spent, the different categories, and have like the numbers for it, but also the data in like graphs and charts, which I'm really excited for, but I still have to work on that. So my budgeting template for Google Sheets won't be available yet, but I do want to make it available later on in the year once I kind of have like perfected and use it a couple more months. That will be everything for today's video, but I was really excited to share this with you because personal finance and budgeting is a huge thing here on my channel and a huge passion of mine. And so switching programs of where I do my budgeting and also kind of like the categories is a big thing for me and a big thing for me to share on my channel. So thank you so much for watching. If you want more videos like this, please let me know, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!